Hey guys, I'm Coach Levi here with Coach Nick. We're going to go over the left hook to the head today. You guys got to be really cautious when it comes to this punch. A lot can go wrong. There's going to be a lot of cues that we go over. We'll probably make multiple videos on this one, just in case if we forget anything in this first video here. So again, they're just going to get in their natural stance. Now the way you set up for this hook is just like you're throwing a a right hand or a cross, depending if they're in southpaw. You see how he turns his back foot, his knee, and his hip, okay? Your knee is gonna be one of the more important things when it comes to this left hook. Now, let's just go into that knee really quick just to explain why that's so important. Wherever your knee's pointing on this on that back leg for this left hook, that's going to be where the maximum power ends. Where you sit down in that little saddle, okay? And it's a slight window. It's about a 1 inch or so variant before it becomes pushing on those two other sides of that window. And I'll dive into it really quick. So I'm going to use Nick here really quick. I'm going to hop on the other side just so you guys can kind of see. So if I wanted to hit Nick in the chin, I'm going to have you square off with me. If I want to hit Nick in the chin with this left hook to the head, I need to point that back knee right at his chin, because as I sail this out, that's where my power is. And like I said, it's about a 1 inch window of that maximum power. Anything before that is going to push, and anything after that window is going to push. So as you guys can see, as I point that knee right at where my hand is at, right where Nick's hand is at, maximum power, anything after that is a push, and anything before that is going to be a push. So if you want to talk about really snapping hard left hooks off, that's what's going on. And make sure just that knee isn't diving, which stems from that back toe like we covered in the right hand. You're rolling up on just that one big toe. Make sure we're recruiting all 5 of our toes and we're still keeping weight back there, okay? It's just super important. With this rotation on the upper body side of the house, it's okay if you get a little bit more rotation. We're trying to clear to get that left hook around. Clear a little bit of distance there, all right? So, toes looking good, knees pointing at the target, hip is through. Now with this punch, it's gonna be damn near impossible to throw it without throwing yourself off balance if your hips are underneath you, okay? So just make sure those hips are back. You have a little forward lean, it's not super aggressive, right? And our hips aren't underneath us. As soon as our hips are underneath us and we try to throw this punch, it's going to throw us way back off balance, all right? So those are the lower body things to look for. Upper body rotation, it's okay if the shoulder comes a little bit forward, but we don't want it too forward because that'll start to dive that knee and turn everything and we'll be off balance, right? So a little turn is okay here. He's solid, all right? Okay, let's go back down to the feet. So just like rhythm 2 in the past videos, what your feet need to do, let's restart here. So he threw a right hand or got set up for this left hook. You see this one heel is up, right? He has his weight in the balls of his feet. He's not going up onto a toe at all. He's not throwing himself off balance. He still has a decent amount of weight in that back leg, okay? For the left hook to work, we gotta pick one heel up as we put the other heel down. So as he's rotating through, that back heel is gonna sit and that front heel is gonna come up and turn. And as you can see, he just has to turn it in front of the target, right? It's not, he has to follow all the way through and throw himself off balance. It's just getting that hip to turn in to that target. Okay, guys? So, this will be one of the hardest things to teach people. This is one of the hardest punches to teach. So as he pops in that stance again, gets ready, just make sure when they're throwing this hook, they want to rotate their weight to that back leg, right? And it's not all their weight. We don't want to see them throw themselves off balance here. You still want weight in that front leg, but we don't want all of our weight in that front leg, if that makes sense. Because if he tries to throw his weight in that front leg, you see how it throws him off balance, throws him back, and the trajectory of that punch is off, okay? So those are really important, is just what the feet and what the knee is doing, that back knee, okay? Make sure that's good, just that good rotation of sitting in that saddle, all right? Let's go to the upper body really quick. So, when it comes to the mechanics of the punch, he wants that thumb to the sky. Reason being, it locks all of those tendons in place, the bicep tendon to the shoulder, all right? If he has thumb in or thumb down, they tend to dive all their weight into that shoulder, and it's gonna cause some problems in the future, whether it's, you know, tendonitis, strain, or tear. And we both have torn our shoulders multiple times, and it happens so quick and so easy. So just a big thing is keep that thumb to the sky, especially at a beginner level, all right? You wanna make sure that wrist is locked into place. There's no flexion in that wrist whatsoever. It's locked in. Just think about being in a cast from your wrist all the way up to your shoulder, okay? You don't want your upper body to really throw this punch, because that's allowing a little bit more wiggle room for trouble, right? A little bit more flexibility in diving or rolling that wrist or dropping that elbow. You guys can see that's just not structurally sound whatsoever. So make sure your wrist is locked into place, that elbow's behind that wrist, and that shoulder is up. We're all on an even plane, right? Just with the ground, it's an even plane, nothing down like this. Now, that's the very basic hook. You'll see at a higher level, they do different things with that hook, but for right now, just at a beginner level, that's the best starting point that you guys could give your clientele, all right? So, when we come in, another thing to look for is where that head is at. Make sure they're not standing up on that punch. Just one cue that I like to tell my clientele is just imagine a ceiling over their head, so they just rotate through, and we don't have any extra movements, right? So getting set up for this punch, another thing to look for is if they're coming in a little too low, right? A little too forward, all right? You want that, like I talked about a little bit earlier, you want a slight bend forward, not a very aggressive bend forward. And now, just make sure they have the ceiling over their head, and when they throw that punch, they're just rotating through and not standing up. Shifting that weight to that back leg, like I said, not all of it, but a decent amount, right? That'll allow you to pick up that front leg and make it a hell of a lot easier versus trying to rotate with all that weight on there, and it'll throw you off balance, okay? Those are some big hitching points that we see a lot with clients, okay? Yeah, so thumb to the sky, elbow up, rotate through. You don't want this hand way in front of your face. You don't want it way behind your face. You want it right in front. And just let that hip do the work. I promise you, if you deliver that hip, it'll be a lot more solid of a punch versus trying to arm it, okay? When we get into this, just make sure their eyes are always on the target, and we're tucking that chin into that side that hook is throwing, right? Tuck that chin, rotate through. A lot of times you'll see people with their head is they'll throw their head back and take their eyes off that target. That opens them up, which will develop a slap to that punch, and that doesn't hurt anybody, okay? So just make sure, eyes forward, always staying on that target. That chin will come and tuck to that forward shoulder here, okay? Sounds good, guys. That's how you throw a left hook. Thanks.